The sun hung high in the sky, casting a golden glow over the sprawling estate of my wealthy relatives. It was the annual family reunion, a day marked on everyone's calendar as a celebration. But for me, it felt more like a time bomb, ticking away until the inevitable explosion of judgments and snide remarks. As I arrived, I could already hear the laughter and chatter, punctuated by the clinking of champagne glasses. My stomach tightened just thinking about stepping into that world again, but I took a deep breath and pushed forward. Among the lavish decorations and gourmet food was my Aunt Claire, a woman whose wealth seemed to amplify her condescension. She was radiant in her designer outfit, a living testament to her affluence. It struck me hard as I watched her parade around, basking in the admiration of everyone around her. But even in her splendor, I felt a chill run down my spine. I had felt it before, the sting of her disdain, the weight of her words that could diminish my spirit in an instant. The moment our eyes met, I sensed the shift in the atmosphere. Everyone else faded into the background as she made her move. "Oh, look who decided to grace us with their presence," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I hope you're not expecting to live off the family like usual." Laughter erupted, piercing through the facade of celebration. My heart raced as I forced a smile, but the humiliation washed over me like a cold wave, dragging down my confidence. How could she? Her words were a dagger, piercing an already tender wound. I had battled feelings of worthlessness before, but this was public, a demonstration of her perceived power, a reminder of my place in the family hierarchy. If you've ever been underestimated by family, you'll understand every part of what happened next, I thought to myself, trying to find solace in the shared experiences of others, but deep down, the sting remained. As the laughter faded, I felt the eyes of my cousins on me. The golden child, Adrian, was stood beside Aunt Claire, soaking in the praise as he always did. Everyone adored him. He was the epitome of their success, the one who could do no wrong. I, on the other hand, was painted as the family failure, the one who was always trying to catch up yet falling far behind. In that moment, I realized how deep the wounds of favoritism cut, festering silently beneath the surface of our family gatherings. I had always been the other in a family that loved to celebrate their achievements without concern for the bruises they inflicted on those less fortunate. The comparison was relentless. I had seen my aunt's eyes gleam with pride whenever Adrian came up with a new business venture, while my own endeavors were met with subtle critiques masked as concern. "Are you sure you want to pursue that? You might want to think about a more stable path," they'd say, dismissing my aspirations with a wave of their hands. But today was different. Today, the gloves were off. My aunt's public accusation was a declaration of war, and I felt the urge to fight back, but against what? Their wealth, their arrogance? Or was it against the little voice in my head that told me I didn't belong? As the day wore on, I observed the dynamics of our family. While everyone else mingled and built each other up, I felt my spirit constricting like a noose tightening around my neck. My aunt and Adrian were the stars of the show, while I was the invisible ghost lingering in the corners, only acknowledged when it was convenient or entertaining for them. I was an uninvited audience member in a play where I had no lines, waiting for the curtain to drop. I tried to engage in conversations, but each attempt felt futile, swallowed by the vortex of my relatives' laughter and casual barbs. "Oh, I heard you're still trying to find a job," someone remarked, and I could practically hear the collective gasp of my relatives. "It must be nice to have all that time on your hands." Their laughter only amplified my anxiety, a reminder that I was still not enough. Yet amidst the chaos and humiliation, I felt a flicker of determination ignite within me. I could no longer stand idly by as they trivialized my existence. I had to show them that I wasn't just a burden. I wasn't merely living off the family. If only they knew what I held, the power I had kept hidden beneath the surface. The confrontation was brewing within me, but I remained calm, clenching my fists to keep my composure. The pain mixed with anger spun into a whirlwind, but I painted a smile on my face and headed for the drinks, clinging to the remnants of my dignity. I could feel their eyes on me, their whispers trailing in my wake like shadows, but today I would not be defeated. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the garden, I took a moment to breathe deeply. This was just the beginning. Everything would change. I would reclaim my narrative, reveal my hidden truths, and show them just how mistaken they were to underestimate me. The humiliation I felt would become the catalyst for my transformation. This toxic family dynamic couldn't hold me down forever. Little did they know that I controlled the family trust, an unbreakable line of financial power that kept my family afloat, a well-guarded secret that could turn the tables in ways they never expected. I wasn't just living off them, I was waiting for the right moment to rise to take back what was mine. And they would see. With each step I took, I could feel the tension rising, a storm brewing beneath the surface. I clenched my jaw, a resolve forming in my heart. This humiliation, this public airing of grievances would not be my end. It would be their reckoning, and they had no idea what was coming. The laughter around me felt like a cruel soundtrack, an endless loop of my family's disdain echoing through the air. I stood in the corner of the extravagant garden, surrounded by idyllic roses, their beauty mocking my own discomfort. Adrian, my cousin, was now regaling the family with tales of his latest business successes. His voice carried over the mingling crowd, a symphony of applause and admiration that made my heart sink further. Every clink of a glass and every burst of laughter felt like a reminder of my supposed inadequacy. "Did you hear about Adrian's new startup? It's going to revolutionize the industry," a relative declared, eyes wide with admiration. I could see Aunt Claire nodding vigorously, her smile wide as she basked in the glory of her favorite. Meanwhile, I stood by, feeling invisible, with only the buzzing of distance to fill the silence around me. It was as if my presence was a mere afterthought, a ghost haunting the fringes of their celebration. I attempted to engage in conversations, hoping for a moment of connection, but every time I spoke, my words seemed to be drowned out by the collective admiration for Adrian. "Maybe one day you'll find something that fits you too," a distant cousin said, her voice dripping with feigned sympathy as if she were trying to soften the blow of her own condescension. The laughter that followed felt as sharp as the knives they wielded against me. I forced another smile, but it felt more like a grimace. As I observed the dynamics of my family, I began to piece together the toxic tapestry that wove through our gatherings. It was a system built on manipulation and favoritism. My Aunt Claire was the architect of this hierarchy, carefully elevating Adrian while belittling me, her words like a puppet master's strings controlling the narrative. I felt an unsettling realization settle in my gut. My family's wealth didn't just come from hard work. It was cultivated through an insidious blend of condescension and arrogance. They thrived on the idea that their success was a result of their merit alone, ignoring the systemic favoritism that kept certain members at the top. The revelation stung, igniting a burning ember deep within me that had long been dormant. I had always approached family gatherings with the hope that perhaps this time would be different. But as I faced the harsh reality of their dismissive attitudes, I was no longer willing to be the silent victim. I felt the weight of my worth pressing against my chest, a realization that I had allowed their perceptions to dictate my value for far too long. I began to gather evidence of their condescending behavior, mentally documenting every snide remark and dismissive glance. Each time they belittled my efforts or compared me unfavorably to Adrian, I took note. I could feel the shift within myself, a simmering frustration transforming into a determination to confront this toxic cycle. It was a quiet rebellion, a whisper of strength that urged me to stand tall against the tide of their judgments. "Why do I let them get to me?" I pondered, the question echoing in my mind as I stood on the periphery of their laughter. The idea of confronting them felt daunting, yet it was becoming an inevitability. I needed to reclaim my narrative to show them that I was not merely a shadow in their world. As the afternoon wore on, I noticed a shift in the conversations swirling around me. My family began to gossip about my absence from the business world, the very thing they had criticized me for. "I heard he's been living off the family trust," one relative murmured, their voice tinged with mockery. I felt my stomach churn as I realized how they saw me, a burden, a drain on their wealth. I caught sight of Claire's approving nod as she listened to their taunts, a smirk playing on her lips. It was in this moment that clarity struck. I had been holding back far too long, allowing their perceptions to shape my identity. I was not a failure, nor was I living off the family. I was the one in control of the trust, something they had no idea about. The thought sent a jolt of electricity through me, igniting a fire that had been smoldering beneath the surface. I had kept my financial success a secret, building my own portfolio through investments and strategic choices while I played the role of the underdog in my family's eyes. They had no idea that I possessed the means to stand toe-to-toe with their wealth. The realization was intoxicating, filling me with a sense of power I had never allowed myself to embrace before. As I stood there absorbing the laughter and the jabs thrown my way, I felt a shift within me, a growing resolve. They thought they could undermine me, but I was done being the family's punching bag. I was ready to reclaim my story, to rewrite the narrative that had been forced upon me. This awakening pushed me closer to a breaking point, a moment where I would no longer be silent. I was ready to confront them, to reveal the truth about my hidden strength. Each belittling comment was a thread weaving together the tapestry of my determination. The next family gathering would not be the same. I would not allow it. As I stepped away from the crowd, my heart raced with anticipation. I could feel the weight of their judgments lifting, replaced by a burgeoning confidence. I was on the precipice of change, ready to unveil the truth that had been lurking in the shadows. I would show them who I really was, and that they had underestimated me for far too long. The time for silence was over. The tide was turning, and I was about to take charge of my destiny, whether they liked it or not. I took a deep breath, letting the intense frustration wash over me as I stood there, a silent observer amidst the chaos of my family's gathering. The laughter continued to fill the air, punctuated with praises for Adrian, while I felt like a specter, invisible and dismissed. But today, something within me began to shift, a simmering resolve ignited by the realization that I was not powerless. The whispers surrounding me grew sharper, their barbs of mockery piercing deeper. "He's just living off the family," a distant voice sneered, and I turned to see my Aunt Claire nodding in agreement, her smile a twisted reflection of satisfaction. It was a sentiment I had heard countless times, a label they had slapped on me with glee. But the truth was far more complicated than their simplistic view of me as merely a drain on their wealth. Suddenly, the weight of their judgment felt lighter, my anger morphing into a fierce determination. They believed I was helpless, a mere shadow in their world, but what they didn't know was that I had been quietly maneuvering through the shadows, preparing for this very moment. It was time to reveal the truth about my life, a truth they had never considered. For years, I had been managing a trust fund, one that had been set up long before Adrian and I were even born. It wasn't just a safety net. It was my lifeline, a testament to my worth that had been buried beneath the layers of family expectations and condescension. I had kept it hidden, believing that my family's perception of me was unshakable. But what if I could shake it? The idea filled me with electricity. I had spent countless hours researching investments, understanding the intricacies of the financial world, and making decisions that had grown that trust fund significantly. I wasn't the failure they thought I was a silent architect of my own future. As I continued to observe the family dynamics, a plan began to form in my mind. I would confront them not with anger or bitterness, but with the undeniable truth of my accomplishments. In that moment, I envisioned their faces when they learned that the quiet, unassuming family member they had always underestimated held the keys to the very wealth they flaunted. Why should I hide in the shadows anymore? I thought. Why should I let them dictate my identity based on their narrow perceptions? The more I considered it, the more certain I became. I would not only reclaim my narrative, I would redefine it entirely. The conversations around me shifted, drawing my attention back to Adrian. He was now boasting about his latest business deal the way he always did, but this time I couldn't help but see through the facade. I realized that his success was not built on merit alone, but rather on a foundation of favoritism and privilege that had been handed to him on a silver platter. What if I revealed the truth? I thought, a small grin creeping onto my lips. What if I stood up in front of everyone and told them I was the one pulling the strings? The vision of their shock spurred me on, fueling my resolve as I prepared for what lay ahead. But first, I needed to gather the final pieces of my plan. I had to ensure that when I did reveal my truth, it would resonate with the impact of an explosion, a shockwave that would leave them reeling. I considered reaching out to my financial advisor, someone who could help me craft a narrative that would not only convey my wealth but also highlight my intelligence and capability. As I mulled over the logistics, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The oppressive weight of their judgments began to lift, replaced by a newfound confidence. I was no longer the passive victim of their ridicule. I was becoming the author of my destiny, ready to take control of the narrative. With each moment that passed, the anticipation for that confrontation grew. I envisioned standing before my family, every eye on me as I revealed the truth about my trust fund. I pictured the silence that would follow, the shock that would grip them, and the dawning realization that the person they had mocked for so long was not just surviving but thriving in ways they couldn't fathom. "Are you ready for this?" I whispered to myself, a sly smile forming as I prepared for the impending confrontation. "It's time to show them who I really am." The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the garden as I took one last look at my family, their laughter now feeling distant, as if I were watching a scene from a movie rather than living it. I felt a rush of adrenaline course through me, invigorating my spirit. I was no longer the unwanted guest at this banquet of success. I was the heir to a legacy they had yet to acknowledge. As the gathering continued, I resolved to act. I would wait for the perfect moment, an opportunity to seize control of the narrative. I could feel it building within me, a storm of empowerment ready to break free. In the midst of their banter, I caught Adrian's eye, and for the first time, I didn't flinch. Instead, I held his gaze, a silent challenge passing between us. Little did he know, the tables were about to turn, and I would reclaim my place among them, not as a shadow but as a force to be reckoned with. This was just the beginning, and I was ready to unveil the truth that would shake the very foundation of our family dynamics. The trust fund was my secret weapon, and soon enough, they would learn just how powerful I truly was. As I stood there, the cacophony of laughter and clinking glasses faded into a dull roar, and my heart began to race with anticipation. I could feel the weight of my family's expectations pressing down on me, but this time, it felt different. This time, I was ready to confront them, not as the underestimated family member they had always seen me as, but as the person I had become. The trust fund I had been managing was not just a financial safety net. It was the embodiment of my resilience and intelligence. With newfound clarity, I approached the center of the gathering, my pulse quickening with each step. The chatter around me dwindled as I caught the attention of my family. Adrian stood there, his smug smile plastered on his face, basking in the glow of their admiration. I could see the bemusement in his eyes as I took a deep breath, gathering every ounce of courage I possessed. "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" I called out, my voice steady despite the butterflies in my stomach. The laughter subsided, replaced by a curious silence. I could feel the eyes of my family drilling into me, a mix of intrigue and disbelief flickering across their faces. "Many of you have made comments about me living off this family," I began, my voice unwavering. "You've painted a picture of me as someone who is helpless, someone who is just riding on the coattails of your success. But the truth is far from that." I paused, letting my words sink in, watching as eyebrows raised and whispers began to circulate. "What you don't know is that I have been managing a trust fund for years, one that was established long before any of us were born. A trust that has grown exponentially because of my diligence and understanding of the financial world." Gasps echoed through the crowd, and I reveled in the shock that spread across their faces. Adrian's smile faded, replaced by a look of disbelief. "What are you talking about?" he scoffed, trying to regain control of the narrative. "You've never mentioned anything like that." "Exactly," I replied, my confidence surging. "Because I didn't want to be defined by my wealth. I wanted to prove myself through my actions, not through my money. But I realize now that hiding my accomplishments only allowed your misconceptions to fester." The room was tense, each person hanging onto my every word. I continued, feeling the power of the truth coursing through me. "I've been quietly investing, learning, and building something for myself. I've funded my own ventures and supported causes I believe in, all while staying in the shadows of your grandiosity." As I spoke, I could see my Aunt Claire's expression shift from smug satisfaction to a mixture of shock and embarrassment. She had always been the loudest critic, dismissing me as the black sheep of the family, a label I had worn like a shroud. But now I was shedding that skin, standing tall and proud in my truth. "I am not just living off the family. I am part of a legacy you cannot even begin to comprehend," I declared, my voice rising with conviction. "I control the trust that holds the wealth you flaunt so carelessly. I am the one who can decide how it is used, who benefits from it, and what impact it has on our family." The silence was deafening, and for a moment I relished the astonishment that enveloped them. I could see the wheels turning in their minds as they grappled with this new reality. They had underestimated me for so long, and now the tables had turned. Adrian, desperate to regain his footing, scoffed, "You're just saying this to make yourself feel better. Money doesn't define who you are." "Perhaps not entirely," I replied, "but it does give me the opportunity to create change, to support the family in ways you never considered. It's not just about wealth. It's about the respect and dignity we afford one another." His face flushed with anger, but I pressed on, unwilling to let him derail my moment. "For too long, I've allowed your perceptions to dictate my identity. I am done hiding. I am done being the poor cousin in your eyes. I am ready to redefine my role in this family, not as a burden, but as an equal." With every word, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The years of belittlement and condescension began to crumble as my family confronted the truth. I could see the realization dawning on their faces, the understanding that their past behavior had been rooted in ignorance and entitlement. "I invite you all to reevaluate your assumptions," I concluded, my heart pounding with exhilaration. "Let's move forward with respect for one another, recognizing the strength we all bring to this family, regardless of our financial status." The murmurs began to transform into a chorus of apologies and reassessments. Claire stepped forward, her expression softening. "I had no idea. I'm sorry for how I treated you," she admitted, her voice quavering. "I never understood the pressures you faced, and I can see now how wrong I was." As the family began to engage in discussions, acknowledging their past mistakes and celebrating my achievements, I felt a sense of belonging I had long yearned for. I wasn't just a bystander anymore, I was a pivotal part of this family's narrative, and I was ready to take my place among them. In that moment, I realized that respect and dignity were not determined by wealth alone. They were earned through understanding, empathy, and the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. My journey had only begun, but I was no longer the shadow lurking in the background. I was the light that would guide my family toward a more inclusive and respectful future. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more stories where the underdog finally gets the justice they deserve.